Yeah.
Oh, hold on, I'll just check.
Anya's message, sent a message to Facebook.
Yeah, she's logging in again.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like I said, my name is Lina, and I live in Sweden. And I've been working with basic income since 2012, and that's where I met when Hilda and me and Sarat and Anya met, and there was fire. We were just meant to do this together. Quite amazing. I've never worked. I don't normally like to work in groups. I'm not a group person, but with these people, we just complement each other, and we have fantastic laughs, and we can get so creative, and it's fantastic. And when I tell other people, they get so jealous to have that connection, and it is fantastic, really fantastic. And when I don't work with basic income, I work at a place for addicts, all kinds of addicts, mostly alcoholic and young people with drugs. So I have a very meaningful job as well. So my life is quite good.
Good.
That does sound good.
Good. Excellent. Hilda.
Yeah, well, I'm Hilda, as you know, from the Netherlands. I'm in the basic income movement in the Netherlands, a board member, and also, well, with Lena, Sarat, and Anya, and co-founded Mission Possible 2030. I'm a guest lecturer at the blockchain minor at the Hague University of Applied Sciences. And I'm also involved in a very nice project, which is called Self-Organized Learning and Innovation. That is in India, which is about freedom of choice, complete freedom of choice for the children while they are learning. So they choose their own topics, they choose their own way to approach those topics. And yeah, so that's, and when I'm not working voluntarily for these kind of good causes, I'm working in elderly care 2 days a week, and I'm a knowledge manager, program manager over there. So that's what I do 2 days a week. All right.
Great. What's happening to Anya? Okay, I'll introduce myself. I'm Sharad from India. I'm from the southern part of India. I live in a city called Hyderabad. And last year, my dear friends came to Hyderabad because of the big congress we had, a big conference we had. By training, I'm a sociologist, but I'm a people person. If I don't see people and meet people, I go crazy. That's the only reason I can go crazy. And this group that we came together like a magnet. I think we came together not because of any discussions or anything. We just loved each other. What happens when we have meetings is love, a lot of love and empathy for each other. We understand each other and we travel with each other. So it's a great community. I feel I belong to that community. And I also feel that I have my daughter. I have a daughter who's 13, who's 12, going to be 13. So I have a responsibility to be around for at least another 20 years because I have many more responsibilities at home and for the world. So we all work for the unconditional basic income. The best thing I like about basic income is that it's unconditional, and I feel I believe in God, so it's an extension of the wonderful world of the unconditional love we have received through the nature we got and the air we have and the beautiful world that we have around. And as men, and we have destroyed quite a lot of it, but I think there's always hope. With a group like this, I think there's so much hope. I think we are all there to do many great things. I can see Lena and Hilda looking at. I wish Anya also had been there. And this, I think we are all clued into what we are going to listen to you in a very predestined way. It's not out of curiosity. It's not out of any, what should I say, that sitting on the fence and trying to say, okay, let me see if there's something interesting going to come. There's a kind of a predestination about this. So in fact, we are writing, Hilda is at the forefront of writing letters to the spiritual leaders of the world. And she has just finished, we are in the path of writing to the UN system. So we are connecting with, in a different, we are out of the box. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and I like out of the box thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's happening to Anya? I think I'm very sorry, she says.
There's no sound. It's not working.
There's something wrong, some problem. So it's already
Oh,
8
yeah,
minutes.
no sound. No, she apologizes and she wants me to let you know, Karen, that she really appreciates that you're joining our meeting, and yeah, she'll
Well,
listen
she
afterwards.
she can listen to it
Oh,
later because
yeah,
I record it,
yeah.
so she definitely will see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Okay, well, my way, my life has run several courses. I have made 2 times my doctor, one in social geography, in which I had climatology and geology and sociology and cultural anthropology. And the other one is what we call town and country planning, in which I did a double environmental issues. It was the first time in the early 70s that was given. So that was the first combination. Second was that I became very interested in other ways of how people's mind tick and in psychology, parapsychology. And then I ended up with Jungian psychology and astrology. And in the end, that this was so interesting for me that I made it my profession. And I started an own school in astrology and together with Jungian psychology in 1980, and it's still running. And I'm writing and teaching and lecturing all over the world. And what I like most, actually, next to teaching, I love to teach, is also research. I do a lot of research, and what I think is that you should research everything. So not only that what is given in the news, there's a lot what is not in the news, which is very important, and always based on real facts, on historic facts, and on what is really there. So no superficial things or but what you discover very often is that uh, that we live in a system that is outdated, that doesn't function anymore, and it tries to keep functioning. And every time something goes wrong, they try to repair it with the same mind that let it go wrong. So in the end, it somewhere it has to collapse. And astrologically spoken, we are on a point of collapse. And so this is a quite interesting time. And could you predict COVID? No, you could not predict COVID as such, but you could predict the anxiety and the power struggle and the problems that we are facing now. That's what you could predict with astrology. And are you familiar with a bit of astrology or not?
It would be good if you can give us a
I thought
quick.
I thought so.
Yes.
Yes.
Tell us
Okay.
where the
Yeah.
knowledge comes
Then,
from.
then
Tell us
I
the
then I
story.
will
Speak for
share my
myself.
then I will share my screen and it will show you what an astrological chart is and how we look at the heaven. So I'll just go to my screen. Just a moment. And there it is. What you see is that I will just show you here. This is let me see if I can make it a bit bigger. So what you see here is in the outer circle are the 12 signs of the zodiac, and they are of equal length. This is a kind of we measure the traveling of the planets along that those 12 signs of the zodiac. And you see here, and you see symbols here. This is the sun, this is Venus, this is the moon, Uranus. So these are the sun, the moon, and the planets, and they travel through the zodiac. And the place where they are in a sign, and also the way they relate to each other, and the way they relate to each other, you see here in what we call aspects, in different colors. That is reflected in the chart. This is a chart. So if a person would be born at this moment, which was I had already opened it to prepare this at 13:17 today in Amstelveen. So if a person had been born at that moment, then this was the birth chart of that person. And it's exactly what it is in heaven. This is the horizon. So this is under the horizon, and this is above the horizon. And you see the sun is at its highest point. So an astrologer knows that is around noon, around midday. And so we look at the planets who have a position in the signs, and we can do two things. You can look at a special horoscope, the horoscope for a birth, for a person, but you can also make a horoscope for a country. You can make a horoscope for a company, or for an idea, or an idea that is born, or the first manifestation in the world of an idea. Everything has its celestial image, and that celestial image tells you what the dynamic is around that. But everything is moving in heaven. So if I would look at this chart, here here's the chart again, and if I and watch, for example, here the moon. If I step by just by days, next day you see the moon is moving. But if I go to years, now watch, for example, this planet Jupiter here, the blue one. If I go a year further, you see that Jupiter is here. He was here, he's now here. So planets have their own speed with which they travel through the zodiac, and in that speed, they can, during that time, they can connect with other planets. So if I take another year, you see that, and I just go back a couple of months, then you see that here that Jupiter has joined with another planet, Neptune. And if there is a combination of planets in heaven, then those planets combine their energy, and this is not special for one country or one company. This is a celestial movement that touches the whole world. It has to do with some undercurrent in the world. And of course, because the people in India have an other culture and other religion, people in China have an other culture and religion, and people in the West, it will the dynamic will be a little bit different in those cultures, but the basic tendencies will be the same. And what is now very important, I go now back to today, is that what you see here is that we have here 3 planets, and these are slow planets. There are fast planets, for example, Mars, who is moving through the zodiac in 2 years. But if you look at Pluto, he is moving through the zodiac in 248 years. So when Pluto is going through a sign, he stays there very long. And astrology teaches you that when Pluto is in a sign, he is just showing in world tendencies what is wrong with the sign, what wrong decisions we have taken, what we have to face. And if we look at this sign, this is Capricorn, and I'm not talking about persons at the moment, but about a general idea. It's more abstract. The idea of Capricorn is everything that has to do with laws, with structures, with buildings, literal buildings, but also the symbolic building of the church, the symbolic building of the state. And when Pluto entered this sign of Capricorn, it was 2008, and we were on the point of the collapse of the financial system. And the financial system is also a structure. And so that was actually the moment that we knew, and we could see that long before as astrologers, and we as astrologers warned for many, many years that if we weren't working on repairing the financial system or actually reorganizing it, that 2008 to 2010 would be really difficult. And when we were in there, we could warn that if we wouldn't repair it by then we would face another difficulty, and that is this situation where you see that Pluto is still in Capricorn, but Jupiter has joined and Saturn has joined too. And I'm now going back a couple of months and look at I'm now in December 2019, and you see Saturn and Pluto are here. And this is around the time that COVID-19 officially started in China. We now know that it already started earlier. But then you see this Jupiter, and Jupiter is a planet of expansion and economy. And you see that in the months following, you see that Jupiter is coming closer to this group. And then a month later, you see that they are all together. And what we have is March 17 here. And that was around the moment that the world went into a lockdown due to the corona crisis. Does this combination mean that the coronavirus is that bad? No, it doesn't tell that. It only says that if you have this combination of the planet Saturn and the planet Pluto, this is always, if they are so close to each other, we have learned in history that it's always a time of fear, of destructive tendencies, and it is the people are full of anxiety. So if something happens that people can be frightened of, they will be double, triple as much as anxiety as in normal times. So if at this moment something happens, people will be much more frightened and want to be much more defensive. And that's what we have seen in this whole COVID-19 affair. And Jupiter is actually making it worse in that sense that Jupiter is the planet of expansion, and everything that he touches, he is making bigger. So if he touches the fear combination, he is making that bigger. And that is not something that is confined to a country. This is a world tendency, and that's why you see a worldwide spread. But that's not the only thing that happened. These three together in the same sign, all three are in Capricorn and actually on the same point. This only happens 7 times in 1,000 years with these three. So this is a quite seldom combination, 7 times in 1,000 years. And then it's important to know in what sign it is happening. And we have had it before in other signs, but in this sign Capricorn, it has only been there 3 weeks. I thought it was 1285, but now it's a whole year going back and forth. It started the end of last year, and this whole year it will go back and forth in this sign of Capricorn. And the sign of Capricorn, if Pluto is in there, it's the signature of the people against power. It's the tendency of people against power. It's the people against governments, and it's the people against big industries, for example. And so, but that's a huge tension you see with Pluto in Capricorn, and the last 10 degrees of Capricorn is the worst. These are the worst, and that's what we call in astrology the dictator degrees. And it means that old powers will do whatever they can to grasp more power, to grasp more money, and there will be much more uh, uh, what you call destructive tendencies. What we see in America actually right now is one of those manifestations. And so you get quite angry people, you get destructive tendencies, but the destruction from the people who are poor and who are resisting, no matter what is the cause, but they are resisting everything and they are fighting. That's one point. But the destructive tendencies of those in power are equally bad. We don't see them because they are concealed. But if you think about that, Bill Gates wants to put RNA, which will change our DNA in the next type of vaccines. That's very destructive. You have no idea what that is going to do with people, with nature, etc. So this is a very, very destructive time we are in. And what history learns is that first you see that big destruction, and in that big destruction, in that chaos, and we are just at the beginning of the chaos. It's going to continue for quite some time, and in that building tension and in that building chaos, you see that people who are thinking out of the box, people are not in the system, that they can become what we call in chaos theory attractors to new ideas and to new developments. But you never can predict from astrology what is actually going to happen, because what I have learned in all those years that I'm working with it is that there is a kind of freedom of will. We could have solved the financial issues by 2008 in that crisis, but we didn't. And so we could have had already new systems, but the powers didn't want that. So there is a kind of freedom, but that freedom isn't for free. It means that if you don't solve the problems, then they are building up more and more tension with every new aspect and every new combination that is coming. And so this is one of the really bad combinations we have. It's a kind of a very heavy birth process for something new, and you cannot predict from astrology what the new will be. And so it can be a destruction of a part of the civilization we know, and it can also be the resurrection of new thoughts and of mankind. So this is fully in the open. Astrology can only pinpoint to what times are very, very important. Now, in this whole combination, and if I'm just going for the next couple of months, then you see that it stays very close. You see it's moving, but it stays very close. It's the and now I'm November this year, and it's still close. You see and it takes time now. Slowly in 2021 it is leaving that closeness, but you still see Pluto in Capricorn. Still, people versus power is very, very important. But what at the very same time is working are two other big tendencies, and that is Uranus. Uranus is in Taurus, and Uranus has a cycle of 84 years. And every time that he is in Taurus, he is changing the situation that has to do with the sign of Taurus. And Taurus has a lot to do with the banking system, and Taurus has a lot to do with agriculture and everything that has to do with food production, also meat, etc. And you see now that we try to make artificial meat, and you see farmers in the whole world are in trouble. You see that the banking system is about to change incredibly, and so there will be a huge change in the whole banking affairs. And uh, there is a tendency to try to get rid of cash money. It's also that COVID-19 is said to be spread through cash money, although there are 8 university studies that say that's not true. Still, governments try to abolish cash because then they have more control over people if everything is a bank, and then bank runs are not possible anymore. So this is also, all those tensions are with Uranus in Taurus, and you see Uranus will stay in Taurus for the next 6 years. So in those years, you can see many impulses, many new ideas, but also many destructive ideas about the changing banking system. But as it is going along with the Pluto in Capricorn, there is a big chance that still those who have the money and those who have the power will try to keep it and will try to change the system, that they can even be that it can even be more profitable for them. And I think that what Modi did in a couple of years ago, when he just abolished the 500,000 rupee billions, forced people to take bank accounts. But behind that were a couple of American industries who had already made reports that said there is a $500 billion market if we get everybody in India in a bank account. So and that was actually just preceding Uranus going into Taurus, and I think that Uranus into Taurus will give this development, but will also give a counter reaction of people who want things different. And here in Holland, for example, we have now movements that want a total reform of the Dutch money system and the Dutch banking system. So you see that in several countries also arising, that they ask the government to change the banking system in order to have consumers more protection and more security. But as long as Pluto is in Capricorn, it will be a very difficult fight, and he will leave Capricorn in 2024 2025. So then the energy will change. Then the power struggle will change. But Pluto is then entering an air sign, Aquarius, and then the power struggle, and you already feel that it's going in that direction, is how we can use people's mind as a kind of weapon. And you see already that there is a tendency to think about how we can control minds, how can we force people to think in a certain way. So there will be a new battlefield, because Pluto is always a battlefield. But the battlefield he is in now has really to do with all the structures in the world, nations, big companies, money systems, etc. And that will be much less when Pluto is entering Aquarius. And just to see the last time that happened, we see that we saw the rise of Napoleon in France. And what we learn in our history books is that Napoleon wanted to conquer Europe and just wanted to be important and an emperor, etc. But there is a South African man who worked at the Central Bank of South Africa, and he studied the history of the Central Bank of South Africa, and he was shocked in finding all kinds of manipulations there. And then he started to study the central bank system, how it originated and how it worked. And then he found out that actually Napoleon, what he had seen was that the big financial houses like the Rothschilds, etc., they actually owned governments, because they were just borrowing lots of money to governments, and because of that they could just manipulate governments into war. And Napoleon said, I'm not going to borrow from them. I'm just going to reform the financial system in France. And in the first years of his reign, France had no debt. There was nothing, and it was just thriving. And then the banking systems in the countries around them, those banking houses, forced the governments just to go to war with Napoleon. And so Napoleon was forced to go into Europe and to defend his ideas, and he lost. And that was exactly one round back. Then the whole building up towards the French Revolution was with Pluto in Capricorn, and it was Pluto in Aquarius when we saw Napoleon. So we can see when Pluto is in Aquarius again a kind of tendency that says, well, we now have to look at the people and no longer walking at the whims of the financial institutions and the banking systems and the rich people in the world. But how it's going to end, I don't know, because last time it did not end well. But it doesn't mean that it isn't going to proceed in a good way now. But we must be very, very conscious of our history and about the dynamics that are really going on in this time. Well, there's one thing different between the time of Napoleon and our time, and then I'm going to this slower planet. So we have a couple of slower planets. Pluto, as I said, 248 years round through the zodiac, and Saturn is only 30 years, Uranus 84, and Neptune about 165 years. So Neptune is a very slow one too. And we now have Neptune in Pisces. And one of the things that you see in history time and again when Neptune is in Pisces is that people just from bottom up, not top down, but from bottom up, are coordinating their efforts, very often for free and very often to help each other, and just going. It's they're not mainstream, they're just following their own path. And just to give an example, 2 rounds back, the insurance companies came into existence. Lloyd's came into existence, and it has not like an insurance company like now, which is just a profit-making machine. But at then there were just the companies, ship owners who knew how much damage it was if you lost a ship at sea. That said, well, let's put our efforts together. Let's put money together. That if one of us is losing a ship, we all contribute that he can build a new one. That was the first thing, and that was with Neptune in Pisces. And what we now see in Holland, for example, with Neptune in Pisces, is what we call the bread funds, where people, 20, 30, 40 people, come together. And what they do is that they simply promise to put aside from their own money a certain amount of money in a separate banking account, which is theirs, so it's not central. And they promise that if one of them falls seriously ill and cannot work for several months, that from that reserved money everybody is paying a small amount to that person, so that in total that person has enough to survive. And that's a kind of, again, like how Lloyd's came into being. This is again a Neptune in Pisces thing. So this is the time that you have to use the bottom up, to use the non-structured movements. Actually, they are strong now. And when Neptune went into Pisces, we first had the Occupy as a grassroots movement. So grassroots movements can do a lot in these times. Their ideas can be spread. So if you want to spread an idea, I would do it in 2 different ways. It's important to speak to all the top people in the world, but it's also important to make grassroots movements and to let people from bottom up ask for it, and educate the common people about what it might be. And then you can see a kind of movement that people become aware, and they're going to ask for it. And there's still a couple of years to go. I think that in 2025 Neptune will change signs, so we still have a couple of years that this movement can be very strong. But as I go back to Pluto in Capricorn, that is around the same time. He's a bit earlier out of Capricorn than Neptune out of Pisces. So the bottom up, the grassroots movement will encounter a lot of resistance from those who are in power and who don't want to lose that power. So it's a very powerful time we're in many respects, and very difficult time. But there are also a lot of new opportunities. But we have to take care that we don't focus alone on trying to convince the people at the top. We have to make also a kind of grassroots movement of people who are really starting to understand it, because then they start to understand also, for example, how the financial system works, and they can ask for reforms. Now, this is the general situation we are in at the moment and in the next couple of years. And the question is, could you see what is happening with COVID? And I just now have the chart of China, and this is a country chart. And what I'm showing you now is this is in the inner circle is the chart of China, and the outer circle is what is in heaven now, as I've showed you. And if I just go back a couple of months, if I go back to December 2019, you see that Pluto, which is in astrology what we call the god of the underworld, who makes visible what isn't functioning, and he touched Jupiter in the chart of China, and Jupiter in the chart of a country has to do with the way the world of medicine is organized, and it has to do with the way economics are organized. And so what I could see in the chart of China was that there could be a huge problem for China, showing that somehow their economic system and also their medical system could get a blow, could show shadow sides, but you couldn't see what. And as we know that a lot of viruses come from China, it is of no surprise that this one did come from China too. So what I could see here only was that there was a possibility of a deep shadow coming to the surface around the economics of China, their economical behavior, the expansionist behavior, and the medical situation. And actually, we see that in heaven, the planets move back and forth. And if you look at this planet, this Pluto, you see 22, he is now 23, 24, 24, and he's going back. He's going back to 23, 22. There he is again in August, September, and he is back at 22 for the second half of this year. So it's not over yet with China. We are going to see a lot of new things, and China has to cope with the expansionist. I think that what you see with Pluto on Jupiter at this moment is that Xi Jinping is trying to expand. He's trying to expand in sea. He's threatening Taiwan. He's now actually already a bit at war with India, and this is also the expansionist principle. But this is very, very dangerous. So if you do that with during Pluto energies, then there is a real danger of war. So we are also we are in a revolutionary time, and we are in a time that there is a more threat of war, and China is playing a role in that. It's not only China; there are many countries involved in similar aspects. But I just take China as an example that how you see that it works. And um and from the standpoint of China, they want to restore their old idea of the Grand China, and so through the eyes of China, it is justified what they are doing, but through the eyes of the West, it is not justified. So I don't have a judgment on what countries are doing. I just try to understand the dynamics at work, and at this moment for China, there is still a lot ahead. It has just started with COVID-19, but China will get a lot of shadow projections in the next coming years from other countries, and it will respond to that, and it will resist that. So this gives you an idea that you can put a general tendency that we have seen that is working for the whole world in a chart of a country. And if it's hitting the chart of a country, that country will have to deal with that energy very strong. Well, and this combination, this very difficult combination that we have in heaven now, is hitting the chart of the EU, of the euro, the chart of America, the chart of China. So it's at a chart of the Islamic religion. So it's hitting so many important charts that it's a whole world that is in turmoil, and it's insecure what is going to happen, except that you now know that if you want to make changes, that you must take into account that the big powers will do whatever they can to keep control, but at the same time, as I told before, chaos theory learns that in those chaotic times, the new ideas can attract energy, can attract momentum, and can bring a change. Now, what I did is following. I got the first conference of Bean here, and that was on September 4th, 1986. And the what we in astrology do with chart is that if for the first time an idea is really coming into the outside world, is making an appearance. So an idea can be around for quite some time, and small groups can talk about it, but the world doesn't know it. It's not in the newspapers, and so you can see that as a kind of conception time. And the moment that there is a first big manifestation or first press conference or something like that, that is considered to be the birth of that movement. I could not find a time. I tried everything. I only found the date, September 4th. And so what I did is that I took the time of 10 o'clock for the beginning of the conference, but it could have been in the evening too. But no matter what the time, what I look at is what are the important planets doing at that day. And as you are working with a financial item and with a financial idea, there is one planet in the mundane and political astrology that has a lot to do with financial affairs, and that is Venus. And Venus in the planet of a person has a lot to do with affection and love, but in the charts of nations and in the charts of institutions, it is about money affairs. So we here have the money planet. That's the first thing I look at, and then I look if there is a special combination in heaven that is a collective tendency, and that is here. We see here the planet Jupiter. That's the planet of expansion. It's also the planet of hope. And he is in a connection with the planet Uranus. And Uranus is a planet that it can bring important changes. And when Jupiter and Uranus are coming together, you see really alternative thoughts and sorts of hope, and these are also very creative thoughts coming to the surface. So this is a creative aspect in the chart that at this moment I think may be considered to be the birth chart of being. But there is something special in this chart, which is special and difficult at the same time. That is what you see here, is that the planet Venus has no connection to other planets. So the money planet is walking alone. And I will explain in a minute what that means. And what you see here, that is here we have the planet Pluto, and he is making one aspect, one connection to the planet Neptune, but both have no connection to other planets. So they are dancing together as we talk, as we say, and so they are influencing each other, but they are not connected to the rest of the chart. I often see this when Pluto and Neptune are just dancing together. Then if it's in the chart of a person, they have some kind of connection to destiny, and there is something, and destiny is in a broad sense. Their life change. The people who have that in their chart, their life changes. Uh, they, uh, they can become from a little boy to a very important person. Erdogan, for example, of Turkey, has this in his chart, and they can change a system in a creative way, but they can also change it in a destructive way, because this god of the underworld can dance. Can dance and do what he wants, and so he can point to the very structural flaws in systems and help them to repair, but he can also create destructive flaws. So, and you don't know what a person is going to do with it. And if it's an organization, it's really dependent on how the organization functions, if this is going to be creative or non-creative. But there is a creativity, as I've said here, in a collective aspect. And now turning to Venus, if Venus as a money planet makes no aspect, he can be absolutely strong and creative. Uh, and just to give an example, the horoscope of the modern stock exchange and the birth of the modern stock exchange does have Venus unaspected. And what you see is that they can make a lot of money, but it can also create big money crisis. So the money issue in the chart of being is very big and can be very creative, but must take into account that you will experience big highs and also big depths. That when you think that we are almost there, there's all of a sudden a backlash, and from there you can just proceed and coming just one step further. So it's not an easy road that this chart shows. It's very creative, but it seems that it's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. We're 3 steps forward with 2 steps back. It's not an easy ride, and that's simply in this chart. And the important thing of this chart at this moment is, if I look at how it is in heaven at this moment, we see here the Venus at 27 degrees in Libra, and we see here in Capricorn the Saturn Pluto, the Jupiter Pluto. Saturn just moved, and what you see is that this combination, this intense combination in the world, in world politics, is now connecting to this money planet at this very moment in this year, and which means that there will be a lot of pressure on your ideas, and at the same time you get a chance to connect to those in power. But uh, again, an astrologer cannot see how it's going to end, but this is a year in which you can expect the highs and the lows, and it seems that this is also a year, and also next year it's that Pluto will, the next couple of years, he will go back and forth there. We'll just show you. If I go further, and now we are here in April 2021, and you see he's coming there again, and he's going back, and he's coming there again, and you see here he is again, and then we are 2023, and then he finally is going into Aquarius, and not fully, is just going back, and he's going back again. So actually at the end of 2023, the beginning of 2024, the challenge will be less. But the next couple of years, you're already in it. In the next couple of years, it's a real challenge for your ideas, and you have to work very, very hard. And you see that Neptune is still in Pisces, so do it 2 ways. Just go to the top, but also to the bottom, 2 ways. But these are the years that there are chances that you can fight, but with Pluto in that part of Capricorn, as I told you, it will be really a hard thing, because those in power are not willing to let it go. So you have to fight with really strong powers. Now, when I look at the Mission Possible 2030, um, I just had to laugh a bit, because you see here Jupiter at 18 degrees in Sagittarius. Well, it won't say you much, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put these two just um, next around each other. So here we have the planets of being. You have here that unexpected planet again, and if you look at here is the Uranus in combination with Jupiter, which is that creative mind, creative thinking, new possibilities. And what happens is that Jupiter makes a circle through the chart. He has made 2 circles, and in the second time he is exactly on that creative planet that is in aspect already to Jupiter, and then the next steps is taken, Mission Possible 2030. Also, I have no time for that date. I only have February 2nd, 2019. But what you see is that this is so what I see, if I see this, then I know that Uranus Jupiter combination, that is important. And what you also see now, so I'm going back here to being again with the dynamic. You see that Neptune is now at 20 degrees, Jupiter is at 18, and so if I proceed, you see that Neptune is coming back. He's coming at 18 degrees, which is at the end of this year. and then he will stay there for a while, and then he will leave that part. And as you see, he won't be at that 18 degrees anymore. So this year he will touch this one, and the last couple of years, last year actually, or last 2 years, he has touched it. Especially last year, he has touched this degree. And when Neptune is involved, that would have been an excellent time just to mobilize the bottom-up movements. So you still have time to do that, but it's only half a year when it's there. But at the same time, Neptune can also give a lot of trouble, that you say it seems that there are undermining tendencies, that somehow it seems that we are losing grip, and then it's coming back again, and then we are losing grip and it's coming back again. So that feeling will be gone when Neptune is definitely out of orbit by the end of this year. But what stays is that Pluto, that will keep touching that Venus, that money planet in the chart of being. So if I combine this all, you see that we are in a tremendous big movement in the whole world. It's collective tendencies. It's a fearful movement. And the point is that if you see the Saturn and Pluto, and I'm going back to what I said in the beginning, let me go back here. If we look at these three, if these three are together, even the smallest thing can make people afraid. So the anxiety that is now in the world does not need to have a ground. So it's very well possible that COVID-19 is by far not as bad as we are hearing. But what you see, if there's so much fear, the media are going to talk about, and they're actually making the fear greater and bigger and bigger. And there are a lot of doctors and virologists, and for example, Professor Wodak in Germany, and a thousand German doctors who have combined, would really tell the people, you don't need to be afraid that much. It's nothing more than a very bad flu. But somehow they can't get into the media, and they can't reach the public because of we are open for fear at the moment. And it also means that those who have power have fear to lose it. And it's the whole COVID-19 that has made the richer people more rich and the poorer more poor. So this is the difficulty we are here in. And bringing a positive message in a time of fear is much more difficult to reach the people than when we are in a time that there are more optimistic tendencies in heaven. So there is really a lot of work to do to get the people from bottom up, from the grassroots movements, to join what you are thinking, and what your ideals are, and what you are promoting. And so this is a kind of time image where we are in, and where especially your movement is in. And so this is just a basic thing that I prepared, and I can imagine that you have a lot of questions, and maybe I did go way too fast, but just if you have questions, just ask.
Wow, thank you, Karen. Yeah, I have a question. Do you have questions, Saratande, now?
Oh, I'm just sort of
go on.
away a little
It's
bit.
awesome.
I'm just going to try to take it all in.
Almost everything you say, we recognize and see happening around us at the moment. And when you said about basic income, going to the top and going from the grassroots, what I feel very strongly, and what I'm very insecure about, really, is that I can see the system, or the people in power, wanting to implement the basic income, but without the unconditionality, with a condition that you have to have your digital identity, or your vaccines, or your hook to the banking system, or whatever. So I'm always sort of like now trying to balance between building up a basic income community dividend, like from the grassroots, which we are, some of us within the movement are actually doing already. And keeping the people sort of like convinced that the basic income is still a good idea, even though if the people in power trying to hijack a basic income and implement it from the top. I find that very difficult.
Yes, that's the difficulty, which is exactly in in how the planets are divided in the zodiac at the moment, and it's very hard to fight that. But if you can start grassroots movements, educating people that they don't need to get chipped, that they don't need to get to be in the banking system to still demand this. You have to educate them that that this is not what it is about. And there are very strong movements from 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 the system, promoting a cashless society, and which is all about privacy, etc., and all about identity. People from bottom up should resist that. They should be educated also about those shadow sides and those that behind the most beautiful motives, as so we help everybody to reach the banking system, that they can have their loans, etc., that is not what it is about, that there is a shadow behind. And if people start to understand that, then you create a movement that asks for an other change. And there is the banking system is in change. That is the Uranus in Taurus. But if there is a pressure from the people, it can change in a different direction. So that's why, and it's now the bottom up time, and it's what the common man wants is now important, but they must take care that it's heard, and that they unite, and that they don't fight alone, but that they unite. And there's maybe one beautiful example in history. We have had the combination of Pluto in Capricorn and Neptune in Pisces before, in around 1525. And at that time, we had peasant revolts in Europe, especially in Germany. And peasants were fighting the noblemen. The noblemen wanted to have a lot of rights back, and the peasants didn't want that. And if you look in the history books, it seemed that the peasants had lost. There were a lot of casualties there, and they lost several battles. But what happened, and that they only discovered that in the 70s of last century, when they were looking at letters and personal letters and personal documents that were retrieved, and they found that the peasants in small groups were united and started to negotiate with the noblemen, and they actually, a lot of them got what they wished. But it was so under, what we call in Holland, under the radar, that historians have only noticed the big battles, but not those very subtle influences. And that's the way Neptune in Pisces works. So you have to do it with people who are informed, who know what they want, but who are working at local level and try to get it done there. That's with Neptune in Pisces a very important strategy.
Yeah, so for example, so if we move that to the situation in India now, for example, where 50 million migrant workers are walking back home to their villages. These villages have no facilities to house them, to feed them. This is the time then to help or to educate the
Yes.
people to
Yes.
Yes. to set up their lives, build up their lives locally, with local agriculture, with local
and local money.
Yeah, and local money. Yeah, complementary currencies is quite hot in the yes. Yes, please. Yeah. So complementary currencies, local, community-based.
Yes.
These are the hot.
And actually, that is, if Pluto enters Aquarius in a couple of years, 2024. One of the beautiful things, I just mentioned a couple of difficult things, the battle for how we think, the battle for our minds. But the beautiful thing of Aquarius is that if Pluto is there, then you see a tendency that is moving away from material possessions. So what we have seen until now actually is that people want to show their wealth and show their identity depends on their wealth. And what you see with Pluto in Aquarius, the identity will shift from wealth to what ideas you belong and to what group you belong. And so the shift will be that you say, I am part of this environmental movement. I am part of that movement. I feel responsible. You know, if you feel part of a movement and your identity is part of an idea, then you also want to work for that idea because it's part of your identity. So that's a shift that we will see then for from 20 to 24 on. It will start slowly, but it will at least go on for another 15 years. So, and the last part of Pluto in Capricorn, in which Pluto starts to move now, the last 5 degrees, we can prepare that. Those are the degrees that people start to be open to the new that wants to come. So it's now the time to prepare for people no longer identifying with what they possess, but to whom they want to belong and to what ideas they want to adhere to, and that also means going back to communities and to groups and to a kind of togetherness and like-mindedness, and that's the positive thing of that time that is coming.
Yeah, and you already see some initiatives
Yes.
sprouting out now, yeah, with valuing other things than money and possession, and yeah. And is there a way to sort of like time things based on astrology? So I mean, if you look at those charts, it's basically a clock. It's almost a clock, yeah, but then not in hours and minutes.
Well, you see the general tendencies, but to be able to time actions, you really need to have a real birth chart or real chart, and that means that you have the place, the date, and also the exact time. And because if you have the exact time, you can much better see moments when you better be silent and moments that you better go in the outer world. You can't see that. I just took the day chart, but not the time. So there is no timing, no good timing possible if you don't have the real chart.
I have a question. I have my real chart done with time. Can I use that and read out what with Mission Possible and Basic Income through my chart?
No, that's not possible because the chart of an organization can only if you are the person in power who has all the decisive power and through which everything goes, then your chart becomes important. So what you see is, for example, in Russia, when Putin started to be more the man who is the only one who is in power, now you see that the chart of Putin tells you a lot about what is going on in Russia. And what you now also see is that the chart of Erdogan is now telling a lot of what's going on in Turkey. But if there is a group or more persons or a board who is taking decisions and a group was working together, there is not one person's chart that can be used for timing.
So then Lena should be a dictator then.
No,
Yes. Make her the dictator and we have a chart.
Please become the dictator.
Yes, I'll do that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I mean this dictatorship, years of dictatorship, that worries me, and I think many people, it worries many people, and
Yes.
I'm really struggling. I mean, I'm one day I'm demonstrating in the Hague on the Malieveld, and the next day I'm doing like creating the new future and designing it, and I'm really in between fighting and building.
Well, that's actually the time, and and you have to take into account, you must realize that there will be more destruction. It's not over
Yeah.
yet. It's
Yeah.
and I can't make it more beautiful than it is. So we better be realistic, and we can better be busy with accepting that it's beyond our capabilities just to fight that, but that we can use the energies that are freed and the questions people have just to change their minds and to change it in another direction, just preparing for later. But it is simply a very destructive time.
Yeah, so it's best to focus on the paradigm shifts that we
Yes,
need to
yes, yes. And you know,
accomplish.
there's another thing too that we in 2008 and 2010 we had a combination in heaven uh, that was I can just show you what that combination was. Um, just go bit further. Here it is. What you see here is where you see here Saturn in this sign of Libra in a tension aspect with Pluto in Capricorn already, and also in a tension aspect with Uranus. Well, Saturn is the planet of structure. Pluto is showing the basic flaws in the structure, and Uranus is just destroying it to rebuild it. This is always a combination. It's only about 3 times in a century that it happens. There's always a combination of financial crisis, but it happens 3 times in a century in such a severe way. What with in different signs. So what I did is that I wanted to know if this special combination of Saturn in Libra and Pluto in Capricorn and Uranus in Aries, this is with these signs involved, when that happened before. And I went back in history, and I went back from 3000 BC until now. And this combination, the last time it happened was 1166 BC. And only and now in 2010 it happened again. And what happened in 1166 BC? Just in 2-3 decades, the whole Bronze Age civilization had collapsed. And then I started to study what was the reason of the collapse, and it was frightening, so much as it is the same as what we are going through today, exactly the same. It was also the world at that moment was at its maximum capacity. If you look at how far you can travel, there were very complicated relationships, and there was so much going on. What is going on today too, that it was eerie. And Professor Klein has written in 2014 a book on the collapse of the Bronze Age. And that was really an eye opener, because I saw the similarities between the time we are in now. So I think actually that from 2010 on, we are witnessing, without knowing, the collapse of a paradigm, the collapse of the Western paradigm. And it can take several decades. So I think that when we approach 2040, we are in an absolutely different paradigm. But we are now in the phase that everything crumbles down. And so there's even a more uh, a bigger view. And I've done a workshop on that for astrologers, just to show them the similarities between that time and now, and the astrological similarities. And so there is so much going on at this moment. But exactly in those times, when it is time for a paradigm shift, those who are thinking out of the box can create the paradigm shift. So I think that even if I might not see the work I'm doing just to bring also out of the box thinking to people. I am absolutely sure that what I'm doing now will be in the end part of the shift, but maybe I don't witness it.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I think we will take time to digest this. But I do feel that there is a civilizational crisis we have been going through last 20, 30 years in terms of uh, where the Western civilization became the epitome of something that should be emulated by all other nations in the world or other civilizations. Now, then I think that civilization has entered, which includes those who adopted
Mm-hmm.
those civilizational elements, like all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you take China, if you take India, I think all of us, what we call the modernization,
Yeah.
meant actually westernization.
Yeah.
So that became a model both in terms of economy and society, and also spiritually a sense of meaning of a life. Now that has come to a kind of a dead end, and where we see that why consumption becomes the leitmotif of human existence. That and is there anything beyond? All other possibilities of existence have been eliminated by the very rationalist thought of the Western civilization. So, given that, I completely agree with what you were saying, that that one has reached a kind of a dead end,
Yeah.
spiritually, and then the financial systems taking over, because we have made consumerism as our leitmotif of existence. Um, Apart from that, there's no other meaning. I'm not talking about the mavericks, but I'm talking about the mainstream.
Yeah.
Now, when we see that collapse, as they say that Rome did not collapse in one single day. Something fell
Mm-hmm.
here and something fell here, something fell here, and it
Yeah.
started falling apart.
Yeah.
And finally, the whole thing collapsed. So similarly, I think that I think many philosophers and prophets have indicated at that sense of meaninglessness. Now, what I find at the end of the day very important that we have lost and we should reclaim is what we call care, C-A-R-E. So with individualism, we care for ourselves and for our immediate circumstances, immediate people, but then the care for the larger community and the community life has took a big, severe beating.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what my question is, in the astrological terms and categories, is there a way in which care finds a place that would we in future become a caring world, caring for nature, caring for each other?
Um,
Is there any possibility?
yes, there is, but it really depends on uh, how we go through this power struggle. As I told you, Napoleon lost it against the bankers, but he really wanted to take care of the French people and to give them more living opportunities. And so it depends a lot on what we are doing. And astrology just gives cycles and gives
Yeah.
and tells you that now this dynamic is going on. It doesn't say this is how it will end. So it's still open ended. But I think that when Pluto is entering Aquarius, and that is already in 2024, you will see slowly a building of an idea that when possession is not that important anymore, then relationships are going to be more important. And so there is the openness for caring. But we shall have to do it ourselves. But yes, there are openings. I see possibilities.
great. That's really great to see,
Mm.
because that's exactly the world we want to
Yeah,
build.
yeah.
And we really feel confident that we will do everything that is possible. We feel very small in this cosmos, but we also feel very strong, very,
Well,
that we can.
the point is what I think is that we are born in this time, and I have the feeling that the fact that you are born is that life wanted you to be born, and so you have a kind of destiny, a kind of thing to do. It can be very small, it can be very important, but if your behavior can be a model for a child, and that child later becomes prime minister, then your behavior can have influenced the course of a country. So I think we all have a huge responsibility to live in a pure and a spiritual way.
Yeah. So my last question is, I think in theology there has been this vexed question about the freedom of will, and I think Martin Luther has written about it, and everybody,
Mhm,
how much is of it is determinism,
mhm.
that and how much freedom of will human being has in terms of changing not just his own destiny, but also the destiny of the community that he lives in. When I say community, I'm also addressing the global community.
Mhm.
So in this cosmic determinism, what is the role, what is the room for the will of human will?
Well,
Is there a freedom?
yeah, the fact that I am born as a human being and not as a bird means that I cannot fly. But being
Yeah.
conscious of that makes that I can just do whatever I can just to imitate it or to take other means. And so the fact that I am born with a certain horoscope tells me that those are the needs and wishes of myself, those are the talents, and I will be very happy if I, you will feel very happy if you can just develop yourself according to who you are, which is reflected by your birth chart. So in that respect, that's not free, but um, you are free in the way you express that. For example, the planet Mars, everybody has the planet Mars in the chart, and some placements of Mars make that Mars is very dominant. Mars is a planet that is fighting for his own things, can fight for what he thinks is good, but he can also be a street fighter or a rebel who is looting shops. Well, the choice is yours there. If you have a dominant Mars, you can become a kung fu fighter or a looter, and that's your choice. So there is still a lot of choice in freedom, but there is, if you develop along what is in your chart, and that is also who you are, um, then if you make those choices, you're free to choose that. Some people don't choose to develop things that are in their chart; they won't feel happy. So you have the freedom to choose that, but within that confines, every planet has a multitude of levels on which you can express it, and you can express it in the lowest possible level and the highest possible level. So there is the freedom of will, and that makes it so impossible to say this will happen and so will it end, because there
Yeah.
is that room for freedom.
Yeah, I think for Mission Possible, I see such positive prospects that we see in the next couple of years. Things are really, for the new ideas, there's so much room, and I feel really empowered hearing that.
I think it says, well, we need to stay focused, even if we get all this distraction from the outside, and we know it's a few years, we just dig our heads down and do it, because we know what we're going to do anyway, and we can
Mhm.
sort of see the end, light in the end of the
Well,
tunnel.
yes, you simply have to accept that things can even become worse before it changes. and so you won't lose energy in fighting that, but focus on what you want.
Yeah.
That is a very, very, very nice concluding remark.
Yes. Nothing else to say after that. That's it.
Yeah, really,
Yeah.
really.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah.
I had this talk with my youngest daughter. She's 15 today, and they had this discussion at school about freedom of movement, wearing mouth masks, vaccines, and things like that. And she was telling me this when we had dinner this today, and she said, "Yeah," and I just told them it is not about wearing a mouth mask or having a vaccine. It is about free will.
Yeah. Great.
So that's
free will.
I'm not,
Yeah.
just hide myself for 4 years. I'm done.
Free will. I think one of the biggest events in history that gives me still hope and inspiration is the way we abolished slavery in that stark form that we had, this slave trade and all that. I think, and those were very important moments in our history, and also the moment when we embarked on the adult franchise, that voting right given to women, and how it was possible. We did that after centuries and centuries of prejudice against women. Now, so those are all very important moments in our history, which give me hope that today, what slavery that I see, it's also possible that one day we can also put an end to it. It may take a third strain or a third evolution, and more slavery may come, but as long as we are seeing it, we should fight it. And that's what like people like William Wilberforce and people like who introduced this wonderful act in the British Parliament. I think they have done such wonderful work. I think this is time now for us to do such epic changes.
Let's do that then. Let's rock and roll.
Yes, let's do that. Wonderful.
Thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Thank you so much, Karen. We are so
really
grateful to you for your time.
Okay.
And wonderful. It's very empowering.
It was a pleasure, and I have recorded it, and I will send the MP4. I will send it so that you can see it again.
Yes,
And
we will see, and we'll ask Anya to see and participate, and then we'll have a discussion on that.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
thank you
you're
so
welcome.
much.
Okay.
Yes.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.